right, all right, all right. Welcome to the Becoming. Welcome to the Becomings. Welcome to the Becomings. Okay, so what you see on the screen now is Becoming the Light, the Dance of Shadow and Self. It's a cover of the book. Okay, no. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm part of this recording now. Either have to be cut out or I'll just leave it whole and fast forward through this part. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with me while I get this together. All right. And you hear my family in the background. Um, they're in the other room. Grandbabies wake up loud most mornings, but they are especially loud this morning. A little bit of chaos going on. Okay. Okay. So the baby must have had a blowout. Um, so now my 4-year-old granddaughter is wanted to be very boisterous that she thinks it stinks. And she's gonna keep on until somebody acknowledges, yes, it stinks. And then they laugh. And then she might acknowledge it a couple more times just to get some more laughs. And you know, that's we know how kids do. That's what's going on in the background while they're trying to clean that up. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get into it. So becoming a light. Becoming a light. Let me give you a little bit of background about myself. Okay, I'll just delete this and come back later when there's less distractions. I guess I should have went straight to starting this morning before everybody woke up. Nope, you know what? I'm gonna keep going. Through the shittiness and all. So keep going. You just go. If you hear it, you hear it. Fuck it. Fuck it. So I was reading over my book yesterday, and I came to the realization that I be trying to fit myself into a box, even though I know that these things are wrong, right? Like you hear the saying, you know you don't fit into a box, you know you don't fit into those labels and stuff like that. Very neatly packaged. I know that that comes from systems. It was man-made systems that was created for the purposes of um, predictability, like being able to estimate and predict personalities, right? Especially on larger scales when you are talking about governance of large groups of people, and for control, so you can control the way that the people go and how they show up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Like it's tools that's used to build nations, to build religion, and all of that stuff. And we just kind of fall in place. We just fall in place, play the parts, play the role. But I know we waking up, and more people are realizing I don't fit into those boxes, and it's normal and it's okay to not fit in those boxes, right? But as I'm reading, and I'm reading these things that I wrote. And let me just say this, when I write, I go through deep meditations. I go through these experiences in life, and during my reflections, um, every day now, so much so without even thinking about it, I take time to self reflect. I reflect on my day, I reflect on interactions that I just had. Um, what caused it? Why did I respond that way? What why was the other person acting that way? What could I have done differently? Um, again, like why did I react that way, or why didn't I react a certain way, or whatever, depending on the situation. I do these self-reflections. And when it's an epiphany, when it's something like an aha moment, I'm like, yes, I have to put this in a book. So becoming the light is just that. It's my realizations, my reflections, based on the things that I've experienced and what I've learned from different sources and things in life, like the wisdom that I've gained and some practical steps that I've taken and that you could take to help transform yourself. Because one thing I know is that we act, will is not free. Will is not free. And we act out of our subconscious mind. But the great thing is that the cost is only the work that you got to do, right? And I say it's only, but it's not easy work. It's not easy work, but you can do it. And so I've begun to transform myself, transform my life, make changes that are notable, that are noticeable, and um, very rewarding and long lasting, sustainable. I mean, like real changes, not temporary, like a New Year's resolution, but an actual transformation. Like I am completely different than I was 10 years ago. I'm a whole different person. That person 10 years ago no longer exists. I'm a completely different being. And the transformation doesn't stop. I'm different than I was last year. I'm different than I was last month. Okay. So I put all of these things in a book. But see, the thing is, when with deep meditation and writing from deep meditation and those epiphanies, and then going back to daily life, sometimes you forget what you write. Sometimes, well, I'm gonna just keep it personal to me. Sometimes I forget the things that I wrote. Right. So as I'm reading it, I'm remembering the feeling in the moment when it came to me, when I wrote it down. I'm remembering um, exactly what was happening around that time and what my thought pattern was around that time and the emotions that was attached to it, the feelings that was attached to it. But then I'm seeing it on a whole deeper level because now I am a different person reading it than I was when I was writing it. So when I wrote it, I had one perception, and it's deep and it's meaningful and it's very useful and helpful. So useful that when I go back and read it now, when I went back and read it yesterday, I realized something different about myself. I realized, not that I realized that I was different, but I realized a new level of healing that needed to be done. I realized a transformation, something about myself as I'm transforming from my old self and becoming a new person. I'm still in the process of becoming. I'm in a new process of becoming. And I realized a part of my old self that I need to cut off so that I can get a step closer to the new person that I'm becoming. Um, I hope that makes sense to you. And that thing is, drum roll, that thing is how I show up. It's simply how I show up. How I show up virtually, how I show up in business, um, all of my marketing, promotions, all of that stuff. It has been to fit into some like master marketers box, right? Like to some, there are ways that works for some people, right? When it comes to marketing and showing up. Um, the bottom line is confidence and alignment. It's confidence and alignment. Confidence and alignment. But when we talk about alignment, that means aligning to who you are naturally. Things that match, that uh, are compatible with who you are, what you have to give, and what you need. Aligning to those things and all authenticity, right? And now there is, how could I say, the recipe and the sauce, right? Like, um, you can have the same recipe for, say, mac and cheese. Same recipe for mac and cheese, but it don't turn out the exact same for everybody. It's something extra. It's something about you um, that you add to it to make it different. And if you get caught up in watching other people and other people's success and the people who teach the steps one, two, three, this, that, and you miss the nuances, you miss that underlying authenticity and alignment, it's easy to get caught up in the physical appearance and speak in the way that they speak. Um, the their order of operation. It works for them, but it doesn't work for everybody. But so the important thing is being yourself. Being yourself. Because if you're not yourself, then you will never really have alignment because you're off. So what are you aligning to? You're aligning to things that's not for you. So that's what I learned to discover about myself. I went through certain I went through particular business mentorships, programs. I watched certain videos and things like that that trained in a certain way. I grew up in church, in Christian Baptist church. I've gone through different denominations of Christian churches throughout my life. And just in observation, just an observation, seeing leadership speak and present in a certain way, it shaped my subconscious mind. So that is how I presented. That's how I showed up when it came to getting certain messages out. And the idea that in order for the message to be received, it has to be put out in a palatable way, in a way that's easy for people to take in and digest and understand. So without even thinking about it, subconsciously, I showed up in ways that mimicked my perception of what I had learned and experienced over my life, talking about in business and in church, and watching leaders in the community too, which most of them come from a church background. So it's all kind of the same, right? And then in these business groups, they were associated or affiliated with different churches, and that showed up in how they spoke and how they presented themselves. Some of them. So subconsciously, without even thinking, even when I realized um, some of the psychology behind how they presented, behind the methods and ways that they were showing and teaching. Um, and even when I was really sensitive to the vultures and the ones who used it without the best intention, but was successful at manipulating people. Um, Even through all of that, and I saw the things that was out of alignment with me and with who I am, I still, after I wrote the book, after I made the business plan, made the marketing strategies and all of that stuff, I still wanted to show up in a particular way. Okay, so to break it down even further, for instance, um, they teach a thing about funnels, right? How to bring people in and narrow it down to those who really need your services. That is a good thing. That is a wise strategic plan for business, right? And for getting your products, make sure that your products and services get to the right people. But my issue came in when I dressed it in the cloak of um, how they presented it, how they talked, how they moved, act, um, uh, the even some of the tools that they used and how it was used and how they presented themselves. That is a thing that worked for them, but it was out of alignment for me. It's out of alignment for me. And it is out of alignment for the people that my message needs to reach and for who it's meant for my target audience. So even when I uh, do a marketing campaign, say a social media post, it should not look like copy and paste of what's out there a million times by a million different business owners, entrepreneurs, um, that's out there, digital marketers or whatever. It should not look the same because it should reflect more of who I am, which is in alignment with who it needs to get to, which is exactly who I'm seeking to attract, is who it needs to get to. Um, so I thought this is a really good topic. This is a really good section to present today. Plus, I just realized that I can link the Zoom to YouTube. So I don't need to have a certain number of followers as long as I have this program with Zoom. And there is another streaming service that do the same thing. I can't think of the name of it right now. But anyway, um, so yeah, so I can record this and put it on Zoom and don't have to use up too much space in my phone and and have it go to YouTube. And it's private now, but I can make it unprivate later and all of that stuff. But anyway, so this is Becoming the Light, the Dance of Shadow and Self. Um, this image here is the image of the book cover. And this is chapter 5 of that book, Becoming the Light, the Dance of Shadow and Self by me, Monchelle Hicks Whitaker. Chapter 5, The Myth of Normal, Deconstructing Culture and Conditioning. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read this chapter and I'm gonna go through, and as things come to my mind, because one of the things that I discovered about myself, talk about just being in my natural flow and authenticity and all of that stuff, and then being able to use it to earn a living, to generate income, and to make sure that this word gets out to as many people as possible. Um, One thing I know about myself is that when I am in thought, when I'm talking to myself, when I'm just um, at home reading, thinking, stuff flow out so much better than if I am trying to force it. If I'm on camera and I'm talking, or I'm in a situation where I'm talking to somebody, and then I'm processing through my thoughts, through their nonverbal cues, and I'm trying to figure out how to get the message across to that particular person in a way where it picks up to them. I end up losing the flow, losing my authenticity in that way, and it don't. I feel like I don't get out everything that I need to get out, and it just don't flow right. So, but I know when I'm in thought, that should just be flowing. It just be coming and going. It'd be on point. Okay. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay. I'm gonna pretend like this camera ain't even on. And I'm gonna just talk. I'm gonna just flow. I'm gonna read the book, and what comes up um is gonna come up, and I'm gonna share it with the hopes that it means something to somebody, that it hits somebody in a way that you would get your aha moment from it, and it would help your life, be something meaningful for your own transformation, for your own awareness, because that's what it's about, right? It's about awareness. It's about being aware and radical acceptance, and being able to show yourself grace and mercy, because we're all humans, right? We're all humans trying to survive through the trauma that we've experienced, so that our parents or grandparents experienced, the things that shaped us, the experiences that shaped us. So, give yourself grace. Give yourself the grace that you need to relax and to recognize where you can make changes, and realize that change is very possible. It's very possible, and it's very doable. Okay. All right, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and start. Chapter 5, The Myth of Normal, Deconstructing Culture and Conditioning. Here we go. The cost of fitting in. Okay. Spirit's telling me to slow down or either speed up. I don't know which one, so I'm going to pause for a second. Before I get into it, before I start, I'm going to say, message me. I'm going to put up a link somewhere where you can get the book directly from me. It's also available on Amazon. But if you get it directly from me, more of the profits, I can order it from Amazon and then have it shipped to you or ship it to you um, myself. I have some copies on hand. I could just ship it to you myself, but it costs less if I order it from Amazon. And then I get to use those profits to go towards the brick and mortar that I'm building here. So I'm hosting a fundraiser, selling the book for that purpose. Opening up an amazing space, okay? A herbal tea boutique and hair salon, a space just for women right here. And I guess I shouldn't have said exactly what it was, but support, support it, support it, support it. Um, yeah, you can buy it from Amazon. I'll still get some money from it, but I'll get less because they'll take out for um, marketing and all of that stuff going through Amazon. I get less of the profits. But if I purchase the book from them, I pay um the author's fee and then I sell it myself and I keep more of the profits that way. So I'll put up a link where you can get it directly from me. The cost of fitting in. Let me go ahead and get into the book so you'll know exactly why for those that need a little bit more in order to to want to support. So you'll know why this book benefits you or why you want to get this book. And I also put up a book where you could, I mean, put up a link where you could donate to, because maybe you don't want to purchase the book, although I feel like everyone should purchase the book. You know, everyone will benefit from it. But maybe you don't want to purchase the book, but you still want to support the mission. You want to support the vision. I'll make that, open up that opportunity for you too. And I thank you. Thank you in advance. And also, before we get too far in, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, right? Save it, watch it later, listen to it later. Okay, chapter 5, The Myth of Normal, Deconstructing Culture and Conditioning. The cost of fitting in. Normal is a moving target, defined not by truth, but by power, by systems, by what kept our ancestors alive, by what made people comfortable. And yet, we chase it like it's salvation. We measure our lives, our worth, our beauty, our success, our very humanity against invisible standards written by people who don't know us, who never loved us, and who were often terrified of our freedom. The myth of normal is one of the deepest psychological traps we fall into, especially as Black people, women, queer folk, neurodivergent minds, trauma survivors, and anyone who's ever felt like they had to shrink in order to be safe. But normal is not natural, is not neutral, is not divine order. It's an inherited survival script written by colonization, capitalism, religion, gender norms, class systems, racism, and trauma. And if we don't challenge it, we'll spend our whole lives trying to be good at a game that was never built for us to win. And if we don't challenge it, let me repeat that. And if we don't challenge it, we'll spend our whole lives trying to be good at a game that was never built for us to win. When I first started healing, I didn't realize how many of my thoughts were someone else's voice, how many of my choices were about acceptance and not alignment. See, I'm realizing that on a whole deeper level. Each time I go back, it's like, you know how when surgeons they make a deep incision, they don't just cut straight in. They make small snips going deeper and deeper each time. That's how healing is. That small snip is one layer of healing. And when you come back around to it, you snip a little bit deeper and you just go deeper and deeper each time. How when I first started healing, I didn't realize how many of my thoughts were someone else's voice, how many of my choices were about acceptance, not alignment, how much of my pain came from trying to perform an identity that kept me digestible and palatable in systems that didn't love me back. My anxiety wasn't just about the present, it was about staying safe inside an old role I was rewarded for playing. This chapter is about breaking that role, not by rebellion for the sake of rebellion, but by reclaiming your truth, your rhythm, your identity, your spirit as something sacred. It's about realizing that so many of the things we call normal are just trauma responses dressed up in cultural rituals. Think about that. It's so many of the things that we call normal are just trauma responses dressed up in cultural rituals. It's about using N of one to choose again, to get honest about which patterns of normal feel like home and which ones feel like a coffin. Let's look at how normal was built. Let's find out who it was built for, and then let's decide with intention who we want to be instead. Hmm. Hmm. So many of the things that we call normal, that we think is normal, is just trauma responses dressed up in cultural ritual, dressed up in cultural ritual, whether it's family culture, ethnic culture, societal culture, is dressed up in rituals. And then we say stuff like, that's just how it always been. That's just what we always done. That's just how it is. But it's not just how it is. Look, that's the point. I have to pause there and think about that. Take that in. So pause right there if you need to and think about that. Take that in. Break that down in your life, what that means for you, specific to your life. There's a Brooklyn, Maryland. Somebody calling me from Brooklyn, Maryland. Some unknown number. I don't know who that is. The call is coming from inside the house. Okay, let me continue. The next section. That was the introduction to the chapter. So now we're at the cultural factory of normal. Let's get into it. Okay, the cultural factory of normal. What families, media, religion, and schools teach us about who we should be and who benefits from those norms. Let's get into it. Normal isn't real. It's rehearsed. It's passed down. It's performed. From the moment you were born, you were shaped by invisible. From the moment you were born, we were shaped by an invisible assembly line, a conveyor belt of expectations dressed in identity. We were told what is acceptable, what is respectable, what is presentable, and what's considered good, mature, educated, civilized. And this molding doesn't come from divine truth, it comes from systems that was built to manufacture predictability, obedience, and control. These systems didn't just appear, they were designed by people with interests. And every part of culture, family dynamics, religious institutions, media narratives, educational models has participated in this design. Not always maliciously, but almost always unconsciously, because systems replicate themselves unless we interrupt them. Okay, so think about it. Think about it in your family. Um, there's practices and there's ways and there's things that's said to us that we just accept. And then we start acting out of it. Like you ever just wake up one day and like, dang, that thing that was toxic. Like, why do we do that? Then you have an understanding, mama thought it was right, grandma thought it was right, but then you have a different understanding that maybe they didn't have. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into it. The first school of normal, family. Your first lessons about identity didn't come from school books or sermons. They came from dinner tables, silent glances, tones of voice. Yeah, that look, you better act right. That tone of voice, I ain't playing now. All right. Your family, whether it was present or absent, nurturing or neglectful, was your first exposure to the rules of being. In many Black American families, for example, survival was the cornerstone of parenting. It was about survival, not about what's right, not about learning who you are and to be yourself. It was about survival, protection. Okay. Survival was the cornerstone of parenting. Generations raised under systematic racism, economic deprivation, and violent state control learned to suppress certain emotions and express they learn to suppress certain emotions and expressions just to stay alive. Don't talk back. Keep your head down. You better act right in the store. These weren't just parenting phrases, they were trauma informed warnings, messages handed down to children by parents who had seen the consequences of stepping out of line in a country that criminalized the Black experience. And look, and then first of all, it wasn't that many generations ago. My grandma told me of stories where she's seen white people hanging Black people from downtown in the city where I'm at. Not from trees, but from the awnings of storefront buildings. Okay. And that's in my grandma's lifetime. So it wasn't that long ago. But then you have the parents that's like, don't act up in the store. Don't get, you know what I'm saying? And while kids do need to act right in the store, shouldn't be ripping and running and tearing up stuff. But the reason why those things are being said is for safety, for survival, for control, because what's going to happen, right? Because of the fear of what's going to happen if somebody show up. That's why you can see other cultures. You can see white culture and their kids are acting up. They don't have that same fear that's instilled in them. They don't have that same fear. There's no fear if the police show up, somebody's gonna get shot or somebody's gonna be um stereotyped, or punishment will be harsher than it really needs to be. It comes from survival. That's the parent loving that child. You better act right or else, because we are living in a world we got to live. You know what I'm saying? Okay. But what begins as protection can become programming. That's the programming. It becomes the programming. And it affects actions that you don't even think is connected. Okay, let me finish reading. Many Black children were taught to self many Black children were never taught to self-advocate because their parents weren't allowed to. Many were taught to avoid confrontation, not because it's unhealthy, but because it was dangerous. And while family love is real, generational trauma can twist it. Some were told to toughen up instead of processing emotions. Some were shamed for softness, praised for silence, and punished for difference. The family becomes the first institution of performance where love is sometimes conditional and normal was never is whatever kept the household from falling apart. Now let's talk about the media. Normal as a spectacle. Then there's the media, the great cultural mirror that warps as it reflects. Television, film, music, and news don't just show us stories, they teach us roles. Who is desirable? Who is dangerous? Who is intelligent? Who is a thug? Who is the victim? And who's disposable? Hollywood has spent decades casting Blackness as either comedic relief, criminality, or struggle. Black women have been caricatured as angry, hypersexual, or superhuman caregivers, strong but never soft. Black men were often reduced to threat or entertainment, and white characters are default, the center of every love story, the survivor in every narrative, the norm to which all others are compared. These aren't just tropes, they're scripts written to maintain a hierarchy. Even in the era of so called representation, media industries remain gatekept by elite, mostly white, cisgendered, wealthy decision makers whose idea of normal is rooted in profit, not truth. Social media is democratized access, but not the algorithm. The same biases show up in virality and going viral, the ability to go viral, and platform reach, and in shadow banning. And what's the impact? You learn to hate your reflection if it doesn't match the screen. You learn to crave visibility even when it means commodifying your pain. And you learn that the more digestible you are, the more likely you are to succeed. That was one of the aha moments for me. One of the things that I thought that I had clipped away, but I needed to dig a little bit deeper in myself and sit with that one for a second. Now let's talk about religion. Morality manufactured. Religion has power. Religion has the power to liberate, but it also has the power to dominate. And you know what? That's the thing with religion, with institutionalized religion. I said religion has the power to liberate, but it also has the power to dominate. With institutionalized religion, it's about domination. Whereas the members, the people that's bought into the religion, they are looking for liberation. But it's not intended to liberate you. It's intended to dominate you. It's intended for control. Across history, religious institutions have been tools for political control, colonization, and obedience. The Catholic Church once dominated, um, the Catholic Church once determined kingship and waged wars in the name of God. They determined kingships. And now they determine political positions, right? They have a large role in it, whether you are aware of it or not. Just go and look. Go do the research. Don't take my word for it. Go check for yourself. Christian missionaries were dispatched alongside colonizers, converting indigenous people while dismantling their sacred systems. This is the MO. And it's worked so well that it still is. Slavery in America was justified with biblical interpretations that cast Black people as cursed descendants of Ham, a lie that passed as theology. I know it's some people that hold so tight to that they would argue with that and say it's not a lie. Black folk, even beyond Christianity, almost every organized religion has been co opted to maintain patriarchal racial and political hierarchies. Women barred from spiritual leadership, queer people labeled as sinners. And you know what? Even though there are more, you see more women pastors nowadays than you used to in the past, they are not the norm and they still get criticized by much of the church. Mystical and indigenous traditions buried and burned, questions discouraged, uniformity demanded. I'm gonna read that section one more time, that paragraph one more time. Even beyond Christianity, almost every organized religion has been co opted to maintain patriarchal, racial, or political hierarchies. Women barred from spiritual leadership, queer people labeled as sinners, mystical and indigenous traditions burned or buried, questions discouraged, uniformity demanded. It's not limited to Christianity. It's not about Christianity. It's not about a belief in God or a belief in Jesus. It is about the institutionalized religion. Who created it and what was that purpose? Who's benefiting from it and who's hurt by it? This isn't a judgment of faith. It's an examination of how institutions mold belief into control, period. Black churches in America were a paradox of this dynamic. They were havens for liberation, resistance, and cultural identity, but they also reproduced norms of respectability, gender roles, and silence around mental health or sexual trauma. Holiness became a performance. Leadership became hierarchy, and normal became whoever fits the doctrine. Religion became less about union with the divine and more about conformity to the structure. Education, conditioning as curriculum. Schools, especially in the US, were never just about reading and math. They were and are tools of national identity construction. Public education in America was designed in an industrial age to create obedient factory workers, not free thinkers. The Bell system mimics shift work. The emphasis on authority, rote memorization, and standardized testing promotes compliance over creativity. And in Black and poor communities, schools have often functioned more like containment systems than empowerment hubs. Textbooks have erased indigenous genocide, softened slavery into migration, and sanitized civil rights movements into palatable stories. Black children were more likely to be suspended, punished, or pathologized. Curriculum is often whitewashed, creativity is underfunded, and discipline often echoes the prison pipeline. At the university level, things get more complicated. Academic institutions reclaim neutrality. Academic institutions claim neutrality, but fund funded influence is truth. At the institutional level, things get more complicated. Academic institutions claim neutrality, but why do I keep stopping at fund? But funding influence is true. Scientists, researchers, regardless of what they are passionate about, they are humans with bills just like everybody else, and they have to pay the bills. Unfortunately, institutions, universities don't fund good research studies. They don't fund research studies that would have some major breakthrough for humanity. They fund whatever big corporation pays them to fund. So then the scientists who have a passion to do something great in the world get pushed against the wall of having to pay bills and having to live their life and not starve. So they take the money, they do take the research jobs that pays the bills. And that's often those that's funded by big businesses, where they are looking for specific answers to put out to people so that they can continue to make sales and make money. Not so that they can put the truth out there or even adjust their business practices to fit with the truth for the better good of humanity, but the other way around. They want to fit the data to what they are selling so that they can make more money. It's for profit, not based on what's right or what's true. It's for profit. Academic institutions claim neutrality. They say that they're neutral, that it's just about education, but it's not. Funding influences the truth. Scientific research is often skewed by the interest of corporations, political agendas, and cultural biases. For instance, and again, don't take my word for it, go and look it up yourself. Studies on race and intelligence were historically funded by white supremacist groups, by white supremacist interests. Look up the Pioneer Fund. Check out the Pioneer Fund. See what it was, what it started out as, and how it's transformed up till today. The last time they changed our name was 2025. Do the research, the Pioneer Fund. Climate change denial was amplified by fossil fuel industry backed science in the 1990s and the 2000s. So all of that you hear about climate change ain't real, it ain't happening, this is just natural stuff, natural earth cycles, that was funded by the people that's causing the companies that's causing the climate change. Again, don't take my word for it. Look it up. Look it up. There was a major research study done by Exxon, um, and you can find it. You can find it. You can see the research from the scientists. Okay. Scientists put out there factual information um about what's going on, about climate change, about the effects of climate change, about what's to come. I mean, going all the way back to the 60s, they were talking about this. And you don't have a whole lot of scientists agreeing on nothing, even being paid to do so. You don't have a whole lot of scientists agreeing on nothing. But they actually came together and created a foundation because we all have to live on this planet. It affects us all. They said, okay, this is real and we need to do something about it. And there's actually a paper that's put out. Exxon funded this research study, and the results said, the scientists said, this is a thing. This is going to get serious. Something needs to be done. And here's why. And here's why. But then the messages got flipped and it got put out as something else. It got skewed into these are just natural earth cycles. And then without doing further research, there's people that's out there that listen to it and say, yep, think about it. These are just natural earth cycles. Well, you know what? They are natural earth cycles, but that human induced climate change is real. Things are not supposed to be this bad, this fast, and right now. So we are out of alignment with nature's natural climate cycle. And again, don't take my word for it. Go look it up. Go look it up. Go look it up. And I'll put some links in the description to the things that I'm talking about too. Go and check it out. Medical studies have underrepresented Black people for decades, contributed to harmful disparities in diagnosis and treatments. Even now, major universities, and then about that, we all know, we've all seen the image of the Black woman um, that they used, that they did all these experiments on her reproductive organs without any type of medicine or pain relief or any of that. Just like she wasn't human or something. You know, the lies that's told, like we are just, Black folk are just predisposition for addiction, or Black women have a high tolerance to pain. So if she is saying that she's in pain, you could just ignore her because she's just over exaggerating and just want some sort of drug because Black folk are just predisposition for drug use, drug abuse, and addiction. Those lies. Stuff like that that's still reflected in the medical industry. Again, don't take my word for it. People are putting those videos out there on TikTok, sharing their experiences. We're seeing what's happening in these hospitals with the nurses and with the staff and stuff like that. Even now, major universities receive government and private funding from organizations that shape what gets researched, what gets published, and what gets taught. Big facts. I'm in school right now for agriculture. And I found out that the major or one of my concentrations, it doesn't make sense to make it a concentration um, because they don't even fund. That's environmental science because they're not even funding the environmental science and the research part of it right now. So the classes, I'll be paying for a major that's not teaching me as much as it could teach me or as much as they used to teach. Yeah. Political leaders influence school curriculums, banning books, erasing queer identities, or creating queer identities, and revising history to protect nationalist narratives. The result, we're taught to believe in authority over inquiry. Just believe if a person says it with confidence, if they're in a certain position of authority, believe them instead of doing your own research, instead of asking questions, thinking for yourself, and looking a little deeper. We're taught to believe in authority over inquiry. We're taught to memorize instead of think, rote memorization. Don't process, don't think about why this is or why this makes sense. Just remember it like you remember the ABCs, just remember it. We're taught that normal is what gets rewarded with an a diploma, or a job. That's one of the things that I can say about the professors at my school and the curriculums that are funded and that do get taught is the teachers are passionate. They actually want you to think. It's not about rote memorization. It's designed for you to actually examine it and think. Who benefits from normal? The answer is simple. Whoever created the system. Normal keeps the status quo and ensures predictability. And guess what? Predictability means that you could easily create marketing around it. You could easily know, you can predict cash flow. You can predict buying and spending patterns. You can predict even migrations, where people are going to move to on large scales, what parts of the country. So it's easier for planning. It ensures predictability. Normal ensures predictability. It keeps the status quo. It makes revolution harder, and it teaches you to self-police. And when your whole life is spent trying to belong, when you're trying to fit in, when you're trying to be normal, be whatever they say normal is, which is what they're saying that you are supposed to be and not who you really are, you don't even have the energy to question why this box was built in the first place. You're just trying to fit into that box. But N of One, self study, offers a different path. It says, if you stopped trying to be good, what if you stop trying to be good and start trying to be free? What if you stop measuring your value by somebody else's ruler? What if you could study yourself outside of the system and build a life that honors your actual soul and not the role you were designed? I mean, you were assigned. You weren't born to be digestible, you were born to be whole. And no one gets to define what your healing, your joy, or your truth should look like. Not family, not church, not school, not culture, just you in full, powerful, honest alignment. And that's what it's all about, right? Like you be yourself. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's supposed to be. So since humanity has existed, there has been a struggle with governance on large scales. How to maintain peace and balance and harmony in groups of large groups of people. We know that systems work. We know that our mind operates in systems naturally, um, because we can't consciously be aware of everything at once. Our mind puts certain things on autopilot because That way it conserves energy. And then you can focus on the things that you need to focus on. You can focus on the tasks that you need to focus on. And certain other things just get put on autopilot. That's why you don't have to think about walking, you just walk. You don't have to think about breathing, you just breathe. Some things in your life, you drive a certain route every day. You don't even have to think about it anymore. So much so that even the autopilot takes over. So if you're not thinking and you want to go off course, if you ain't thinking about it, you may end up going your normal route anyway. You're like, I wanted to stop at the store, and now I'm on the highway on my way home. I forgot I wanted to stop by that store. Like autopilot just takes over. That's your brain's way of conserving energy. So this is how systems has been since the beginning of time. since people started measuring time, since humanity came to this earth and started building these systems to figure out how to live together in larger groups. We know systems are needed. We know some form of governance is needed. But exactly how to govern, we haven't figured it out yet. We have not quite figured it out yet. It seems like the closest to right that we've got is some sort of democracy. But that we see has a whole lot of flaws, not even to mention we are not really in a true democracy here in America. Anyway, but we are still figuring it out. But these systems have been designed for governance to be on autopilot, for it to be easy. And then you add capitalism in there, and then greed sets in. And it really starts to work against the individual person instead of with the individual person for the benefit of the individuals, right? So if we take it back and start with us, with the individuals, but with the balance, knowing that we all have to live together and that we need some sort of systems to live together so that it's not just total chaos and anarchy. We have come to a point where, as human beings, we don't want that, a majority of us. Nothing is absolute. Can't say everybody, but we know that we don't want that. We know that we want peace. We want harmony. We've experienced enough chaos and pain and depression, enough of the extreme of the antagonism and war and violence and all of that. We've experienced that as humans enough over generations. And we know that we don't want that for real. We want healing, we want peace, we want harmony, we want balance. We appreciate art. We appreciate free expression. We appreciate the creativity of others. So now is the time to realize, and many people are waking up to this, that we can be ourselves and we can heal from those traumas and things so that we can be the best version of ourselves and we can live in harmony with one another. And in that way is where the new systems, the new governance has to be built from that perspective on a foundation of love, of peace, of working together, of coexisting and collaborating. It's not about dominating and controlling people because some people think differently or think on higher levels than others. It's not about manipulating people with systems in order to control and dominate them. It's about empowering the individual, empowering the people so that we can all be mature leaders and know how to work, create new systems based on that. All right, but let's talk about the inherent lie of assimilation. How Black Americans, migrants, and colonized groups have been taught that survival equals conformity and how that leads to suppression of identity. That's going to be the next book, The Salad Bowl. Okay, let's get into it. We weren't taught to belong, we were taught to survive. And the lie that got whispered, shouted, and embedded into our bones is this: to survive, you must become like them. What just came to mind? It was that Kendrick Lamar song, They Not Like Us. Who are they? Who is the them and who are us? They not like us, right? To survive, you must be like them. For Black Americans, migrants, indigenous people, and every culture touched by the hands of colonialism, assimilation wasn't offered as an opportunity. It was forced as a condition for safety. It was forced as a condition for safety. The moment your ancestors were ripped from their land or their language or their food or their gods, you inherited a blueprint that said, don't be too loud, don't be too different, don't be too much like yourself. Okay. And now let me add into here, white folk was assimilated too. White folk was assimilated too. White folk was fed the lie and they were mentally conditioned too. Not all Black folks were slaves. Not all Black folk came to this country poor. Not all white folk came to this country wealthy. Not all white folks were slave owners, but all of them did get conditioned. All of them did get conditioned by racism. And if they thought for themselves, if they said, no, they are people just like we are, if they showed any bit of humanity towards a non white person, they got the punishment. They got ostracized. They got beat. And in some cases, they got murdered too. And they also got enslaved. I know what you're saying. I know you like this. It wasn't the same type of slavery. It was indentured servitude. They didn't experience the same things that we did. Different points, different times for different folks. There was a lot of things happening at once, and some of them actually did. That's the truth. But all of them got conditioned. All of them got conditioned. It is, let me get close to the mic for this one. It is humanly impossible for a healthy human mind to hurt another human being, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, if they are not a threat. It is humanly impossible for a healthy human mind to hurt another human being that is not a threat to them. Those white folk are human, just like everybody else. You know what the difference is? Some people with an agenda, some people, mostly white folk, with an agenda, program them to believe that Black people, indigenous people, anybody that was not them or that does not look like them is less than them. And the programming is still going on today. They have been programmed for insanity. It is a mental illness. Racism, bigotry, it is a mental illness. And I challenge psychology to do a deep dive, do a deep research on that. Pair up with some neurologists and go and study that. It is a mental illness. And they have their own type of trauma that they need to heal from. Listen to them talking to each other. Listen to them on social media, the white ones that woke up and they realized something different. Listen to them talking to their own people. Listen to the ones that say that they was raised that way and they was there, but now they came to a different realization. That is trauma healing in progress. That is a reprogramming that's happening in them. You have to literally change your mind, just like we have to reprogram ourselves from the things that shaped our mind, from our survival mode, being stuck in survival mode, from the trauma that was caused under these systems. It is the same thing, it just looked differently. They got a different type of programming. They got a different type of programming that they need to heal from. It's insanity. So, with that awareness, is not to give it a pass. It's still toxic. It's still dangerous. It still has to change. But with that awareness, hopefully it'll come empathy. It'll come another, different understanding that would allow the anger, that deep rage and resentment to be quieted, and that you'll be fueled by something different to make these changes and to stand up for truth. Because that's not healthy either. That's keeping your whole nervous system out of alignment and in a trauma survival flight or fight mode, which is making it more difficult for us to heal, for you to heal. So let me continue. This blueprint still lives in us. It shows up in code switching and self policing and overworking and self erasure. It shows up when we dull our brilliance so we're not perceived as too ambitious. It shows up when we hide our hair, soften our voices, translate our dialects, or accept underpayment just to avoid seeming ungrateful. It shows up every time we shrink our light in rooms built to dim us. And see, that's that self-policing thing. That kind of covers all of that because now it don't even have to be a white person in the room. It don't even have to be a racist somewhere around. We do it to each other. We do that to ourselves. Now we are the cracker. Now we are the one with the whip doing that to each other. Now it takes on the mass of what, crabs in the barrel. And I heard it put in a certain way that sent off a light bulb too. Crabs in a barrel, that's not in that natural state. We are not in that natural state. So then we become the crabs in a barrel because we are not in the ocean swimming freely like we should be. We are not out there. We are putting ourselves in a box. We are now putting ourselves in a box. They don't even have to do it to us anymore. We're doing it to ourselves. So now we're acting, our behaviors is stemming from trauma induced mind, from unhealed nervous system. This is why we have to study ourselves because they've been studying us. They've been studying us. That was literally psychologists, okay? Scientists, or in the name of science, that was studying us, that was putting us under a microscope. And then that set up these systems based on what they learned about human behavior. based on what they learned about our cultural practices and how we think and how we respond to things. So we need to study ourselves. We need to know these things about ourselves for ourselves. That is our best chance at creating these systems that I was talking about, that's built on a foundation of healthy minds and in love, where people will want to work together in harmony for peace, for what's best for all of us. And we can do that without losing our individual identities, our individual cultures. Even if that means that we need to take out of that healed place, we get to decide what parts of our culture we want to keep and what parts we need to throw away, what parts benefit us and help us to grow to be our best selves. The culture of healing, the culture of healing, the culture of thriving in harmony, in peace. The trauma lineage of conformity is the next section. Let's move forward. Let's continue. The trauma lineage of conformity. Let's be clear. The drive to assimilate didn't begin with the desire to fit in. It began as a strategy to not be killed. That's a big ass motivator. For Black people in America, the roots of assimilation were soaked in slavery. Under chattel slavery, Africans were stripped of their names, families, language, spiritual systems, and cultural traditions. Enslavers criminalized literacy, language, and even drumming. These weren't just acts of cultural theft, which is bad enough, but they were deliberate tools of domination. It was done on purpose. Like, this won't just some accident, some happenstance, or reaction after reaction. It wasn't a cascade of reactions or anything. It was strategic. It was planned. It was on purpose, and it was for domination. Because to serve someone, because to sever someone from their roots is to weaken their will to resist. And we know this, okay? This has long been known, studied, examined, talked about. It's talked about in several groups. We know this. After slavery, Jim Crow laws didn't allow for equality. They created a violent caste system that told Black Americans, you may be free, but you're not safe unless you conform to our norms. Okay. So we know these things, but now we're looking at it from the lens of programming, how it relates to our programming and our behaviors, and why we think the way we think now. We honing in on that part of it, not focusing on placing blame or what happened and stuff like that, but just how it affected us, why it affected us, and what we have to do to transform ourselves so that we can grow and heal. Respectability politics took root. Church going, modesty, excellence, clean speech, and upward mobility were were pushed, not just as virtues. So now you have to be respectable. You have to dress a certain way. You can't dress like you out in the fields. You have to look good in public, you know. You have to go to church and show that you're a good Christian, you're obedient. You have to be modest. You have to be the best, the most intelligent. They would say it was a saying, it was a thing, right? You have to be twice as good in order to be respected twice as much and to be seen as half a human, right? Like just to get by in the world, you have to be so much better than them just to be respected a fraction of the amount that they respect themselves or the amount of respect that they demand from us towards them, right? You have to speak well. You have to always be working hard, working towards something, upward mobility. Pushes um this is what pushes us forward. And then nowadays it became a joke, right? You done set us back. You done set us back 20 years. You done set, with that thing, you done set us back as if one person's action can set back the whole race or the whole culture, right? Respectability politics took root. Church going, modesty, excellence, clean speech, upward mobility, and upward mobility were pushed, not just as virtues, but as survival mechanisms. And so the trauma continued. In order to avoid punishment, rejection, or death, we tried to become palatable. But palatability is not power. We were still powerless in these systems. We were palatable, but we were powerless. It is an illusion of acceptance, a mask worn to survive a system that sees you as less. Not to degrade or downplay anything that our ancestors did, any of the sacrifices that they made. It all counted, it was all worth something. At the same time, the trauma continued. Let's talk about immigrant stories. Language, labor, and loss. Immigrants to the United States, especially from Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa, were often told explicitly or implicitly, you are welcome only if you stop being you. Children were punished in school for speaking their native languages. Parents anglicized their names on job applications to get interviews. Cultural foods were labeled as gross or smelly. Whole generations were taught to minimize their accent, hide their religion, or stay apolitical so they don't cause trouble. The unspoken message: if you want access, abandon your difference. This creates internal division. Immigrant children grew up translating for their parents who speak truth through a different language. They often feel torn, too foreign to too foreign at home and too ethnic at school. They became experts at adaptation, but strangers to themselves. Some began to believe that success means whiteness, that advancement means erasure, and that safety means silence. Colonization and the war on identity. Globally, colonization has always functioned through forced assimilation. The British Empire alone colonized over 90 territories, implementing systems that replaced indigenous governance, imposed English education, and converted millions to Christianity. In India, schools were designed to create brown Englishmen, subjects who could serve the empire while disowning their roots. In Africa, colonial regimes labeled indigenous practices savage while indoctrinating children in European languages and values. In the Caribbean, enslaved Africans were forced into Catholicism and their spiritual systems were demonized. What colonizers couldn't control, they labeled as inferior. What they couldn't understand, they labeled as dangerous. And what they could not destroy, they banned. To this day, colonized nations wrestle with identity crisis. Fragments of self scattered between pre colonial roots and post colonial realities. Cultural pride is often buried under layers of shame, internalized racism, and miseducation. Look, I think that says it all. I think that says it all. It shocked me when I was working at a grocery store and there was an Indian friend that I would talk to, and I asked her what her religion is because I heard about the different beliefs in India, um, with like Hindu and Buddhism and the different gods and how different people would take to different gods that is more than just like Krishna and Vishnu, right? That they would take to different gods. So I'm hoping to learn more about her culture. And I asked her about her beliefs. And you know what she said? I'm Christian. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's different. She said, no, it's not different. Most people in India are Christian. And then I look it up and it's freaking true. India. That's insane to me. But then you sit in a church that doesn't respect other belief systems, that taught not to respect other belief systems. I remember a time sitting in the church and they saying it like it is a good thing. Christianity is all over the place. We've reached this many people, it's widespread. When you think about institutionalized religion and the purpose of it. And that is not just the religion that's spread, but it's about governance, it's about authority, and not divine authority, but human authority over certain systems and places. You understand it differently. That is not a good thing. It just means that religion is used to dominate cultures, to demonize and take them from their roots of who they were so that they can put them in a box so that they can be controlled. It's about control. It's about power. It's about taking away a people's power so that some more dominant group could exert power over them so that they can be weakened. It ain't got nothing to do with God. It ain't got nothing to do with God. In fact, that's not what the divine wants. That's not what my God wants. I talked to my friends in Africa and different African countries, and I realized in West Africa, many countries are either Islam or Christian. Islam or Christianity. They're Muslim or they're Christian. The beautiful thing is, unlike what they say in the media, especially with the recent situation in Nigeria, all of that is politics. What's happening amongst the people, they are getting along. They're able to see beyond the religion. They're able to get along. All of that other stuff is BS. There is no real war amongst Muslims and Christians in Africa. That's politics. The people are mixed families and they are at one. But the thing that stands out is they don't have their original belief systems. It's either Islam or Christianity. And their original cultures, get wrapped around that, get worn like a feathered skirt, wrapped around other people's belief systems. So they let go of their own creative way of expressing and of connecting with divine source. And they took on the images of other cultures and how other cultures express connection with the divine, which is sad to me. Colonization and the war on identity. That's really what it has been, the war on identity. The war on drugs in America was really a war on identity. War on drugs was really a war on identity. They talk about this Muslim and Christian war. It's really a war on identity. Take away your identity, connect you, disconnect you, sever your connection from who you are, so that you can feel lost, so that you can be found, so that a new identity, a new label can be put on you. Once you name a thing, you feel like you own it. It's a sense of ownership. Now they take away who you say you are, who the creator says who you are, and they give you their own label. And then mask it in religion, mask it in God, say that it's God who's doing this when it's not. Let's move on. The myth of meritocracy, that merit, good old merit system. In America, this belief system is reinforced through the myth of meritocracy. The idea that anyone can succeed if they just work hard enough. It sounds empowering, but it hides a darker truth that if you don't succeed, it must be your fault. Well, now it's a whole contradiction, a whole thing inside of you. Okay. And now remember, this is meant to shed light on the programming, not to place blame, not to not even to feel like you're being held back, but to shed light on the situation so that you can take control of your mind, which is your power, so that you can go out and live the life that you see for yourself, that the divine has planned for you, so that you can go out and get those things and do those things. But that work hard, work hard, work hard, finding your purpose, all of that stuff is BS. Your purpose is to be who you are. And why not be your best self, right? Your purpose is to be who you are. So your work, your job is to figure out who you are. And then you have the opportunity and ability to create a living around that, to live your life and to create wealth based on who you are, being exactly who you are. And that was another one of the epiphanies that I came to, because while I'm creating these things, these messages, ideas, and things are coming out of me and I'm putting it out there, I was still doing it in a way that was me mimicking somebody else instead of me being who I am. So I wasn't being fully myself. And that is my purpose, is to be me and to be an example, right? To be an example that Your purpose, the whole purpose of existence is to exist. Naturally, I want to help people. That's not something I have to get up and work at. That's not something I have to uh, recreate or transform myself and stuff like I naturally like helping people. I naturally think in a certain way. I naturally, want to put messages out to people to share these things with people. So I have the ability. I naturally like to learn and to see and to understand and to explore different cultures and to experience certain things. And it's possible for me to actually make money doing that, to earn a living doing that. And I'm saying money, but that's a placeholder. I'm able to get the resources that I need to live and survive by just being me, not to just survive, but to thrive. And I can live the best life being who I am. I don't have to be anybody else. I don't have to be like anybody else. And I say money is a placeholder because this money system may change at any time, but you still need the resources. Money is just a resource. It's just a tool to get the resources that you need to live. And I can live that life. Just being myself is my point. I don't have to be in need. I don't have to be without. I don't have to be um, homeless. I don't have to be starving. I don't have to be like, I can do the things. I can travel. I can go to places that I want to go. I can enjoy life without worry, without struggle, while being myself. And I like to do it with ease, right? There's people who is in them like they have to be doing some physical labor or out working hard every day. That's not me. And I don't have to be like them in order to get those things. And it doesn't make me any less than them. It doesn't make them any less than me. People may have their own insecurities about it, but that's their problem. I can live a life of ease and knowing that I have value, that I'm adding to the world, I'm adding to humanity without having to leech off of anybody, without having to manipulate, without having to scam. I can live a good life being myself. Yeah. Back to the myth of meritocracy. Meritocracy. This myth ignores centuries of systematic barriers. It tells poor Black kids that failing schools are their fault. It tells immigrant workers that exploitation is the price of opportunity. It tells queer and trans people that rejection is just part of life. It tells us all to blend in, get along, climb the ladder without even questioning who built the ladder or why some of us started 10 floors below. The system doesn't want your full self, it wants your labor, your loyalty, and your silence. Again, the same as asking who built the box in the first place is who created these systems? Who built this ladder? Talking about climbing up the ladder of opportunities. You're climbing up. Who built this? You know what is one of the craziest things that always sat with me? I used to watch the Discovery Channel a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And I liked the animal shows, I liked the astronomy shows, and I liked the shows where people went to indigenous tribes around the world. One of the things that I realized is all of the indigenous tribes around the world. They would film them at first, people untouched, like, oh, this here's a group of people that's been untouched by modern living. They paint them as like uncivilized and outside of this world, right? Like they are somewhere else living. And those people will be so happy. They running around naked and free, just as happy. They eating good. They hunting. The kids are playing. They have that systems, and it's beautiful. They have that language. They have that systems. They doing that thing. And then some person with a camera will come back years, months later, and now they have tires on that land. It's always a tire, a plaid shirt, and the kids have some candy. And they went from being rich and happy to being poor just that quick. How do you gain and end up with less? I don't know why the tires always ended up there. Why all of a sudden there was tires in the background, what that meant. But in my head right now is representing rubber in the petroleum industry, even though rubber comes from a tree. This is crazy. And then they would have a plaid shirt. It's always a plaid shirt. And I don't know if it's because modern society, like plaid shirts are the ones that always get thrown in the donation bin, or do plaid represent civilization on some level? Is that like some symbol of civilization? Plaid. It's always a plaid shirt, usually the red or blue. Just go look at the documentaries. I'm not making this up. A plaid shirt. So now they have to cover up, as if they need to cover up their shame, like they have anything to be ashamed of. Um and candy, which we know sugar is bad for you. So now it's like they're giving them drugs. So now they're craving these things from the outside world. This amazing, this sugar that just sent off all of these things, fireworks in the brain, and now you just gotta have more of it. Now your body is addicted to it. Here's these clothes, and they're telling you, they're coming from, here's these people that's fully dressed and with this technology, and it's like, oh, let me introduce you to this world. You can have a whole lot of these things. Don't you want it? So now they're craving something that they didn't even know existed. They didn't even care about, and they was living life just fine without it. Just to tell them, well, you need to be a part of this money system and you don't make enough money. So if now your mind is in this system, but you don't have the resources to have the things that I dangled in front of you in this system, so now you're poor. But out there, you had your own value, you had your own identity. And in your own value system, you were wealthy, you were happy, you had everything you needed. It's just crazy how that always worked. And then they would label them as like, oh, now they're trying to be civilized now, as if they didn't have their own, that if is as if they wasn't civilized at first. And under these systems, the way the systems have created us to act, or programmed people to act towards each other and treat each other as anything but civilized. It's almost like, well, what's the real definition of civilization then? And do we really want that? So either we need a new word or we need a new energy to go along with the word in that definition, because it's not aligning, it's not matching up. But with that being said, side note, the next thought, not even a side note, but kind of going into my next thought, I know that we can have, I'm not saying that I want to go and swing in trees naked, although that would be fun to do sometimes, right? But um I'm saying we can live, I don't even want to say in this world. We need to recreate this world. We need to recreate this world. Well, we could live in a similar world where we have all of the modern conveniences without it harming us or harming the planet. That is the world that I see, and that's the world that I'm working towards. This is the world that I see and the vision that I want to share with you, that I hope that you see, and that I want you to buy into because I know it's for the greater good. And this is what we are working towards. We can have the modern conveniences. We will have all of the modern conveniences and have peace and have harmony and have clean air, clean water, fresh food that grows from a healthy ground that produces many seeds, that is healthy for our body, that brings us light, life, and joy without strain or stress. That's unnatural. End of one, a path back to wholeness. Assimilation may have been a survival tool, but survival is not the same as liberation. You don't need to apologize for the parts of you that kept you alive. But you also don't need to keep shrinking now that you are aware, now that you are awake. Let's just move forward and make the right changes. Let's just do the things. Now that you know better, you do better. Part of healing is realizing that some of your habits, your speech, your perfectionism, your people pleasing, your disconnection from your culture aren't actually you. They are programs installed for safety. It starts on an individual level. It starts with the individual. Once we get it together individually, our families, it'll spill out into our families, it'll spill out into our communities, to the neighborhood, it'll spill out into larger systems. This is how humanity evolves. It starts with you, it starts with me. N of one asks, who are you beyond the program? And invites you to study the parts of yourself that were borrowed, inherited, or forced. It gives you permission to feel grief for what you lost and to make choices about what you reclaim. It allows you to define what integration means in your own terms, not assimilation, not as assimilation, but as authenticity. Assimilation told us to survive by becoming invisible. But visibility is not a threat, it's a birthright. Your culture is not a flaw. Your identity is not a risk. You are not too much. You were made to be whole. This is where I am now, clipping a little bit deeper, making that incision, clipping a little deeper, doing the surgery on myself to transform and recreate myself. I have the ability to choose who I am. I identify me. You identify you. What does integration mean to you? What does that mean, integrating into these systems? Integrating your shadow with your light. Like, what exactly does it mean to you? That balance. What does it mean to you? Not as a way to just fit into the box, not to cut yourself down so that you can be small enough or shrink yourself to fit into that box, into that stereotype, into um, human made expectations or systems, but in your own authenticity. Like, who are you? Not who they say you are. Who are you? How do you want to show up in the world? Here's a way that I had it put a couple of times. I heard it put a couple of times. Imagine you don't have a care in the world. Imagine money wasn't an issue. Imagine social situations, all of that stuff. None of that was the issue. Everybody accepted no matter what you said you wanted, who you said you are. There is nobody that'll go against you. Everybody will be loved, warm, welcoming, and you have all of the money resources you need to get anything you want, to go anywhere you want. Who would you be and what would you do? That's a good thought experiment to bring you to yourself and to find out like who you are. Not just you have all the money to get everything, you already have everything. So you're not going out to get anything. What would you do? You have everything. What would you do? Who are you? What would you do with your free time? How would you enjoy it? Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so this recording stopped over here, but does that mean that the Zoom, I mean that the YouTube stopped? Okay, she said she'd go for hours and hours. Okay, okay. Come on with the backup. Thank you. Thank you, God. Look at that. Okay, let's go on into the next section. The cost of good. Exploring how niceness, respectability, and obedience are often trauma responses, not virtues. Be nice. Be polite. Don't talk back. Be respectful. Just do what you're told. For generations, these phrases passed down like sacred teachings etched into Black households, immigrant homes, classrooms, and pews. On the surface, they seem harmless, even virtuous. But underneath, the call for goodness is often a demand for quietness, a silence of the self in the name of survival. What if good wasn't about morality? What if it was about fear? And what if the traits we've been taught to prize, niceness, obedience, perfectionism, compliance, were never about being better people, but about being less dangerous for those in power? Hmm. Niceness is not kindness. I'm kind, I'm not nice. Niceness is not kindness. Niceness, as is often taught, isn't rooted in compassion, it's rooted in conflict avoidance. It says, don't rock the boat. Don't make anyone uncomfortable. Don't tell the truth if it might upset someone, especially for Black women. Hold on, I got to pause there because I used to be nice. I used to be nice because I didn't want to cause an issue, because I didn't feel like a fight, because I didn't want to be misunderstood and all of that stuff. So I was kind and I was nice. Now I'm not so nice. Now I'm not so nice. Whatever form of communication I feel and I see fit at that time, even if it's just you gonna feel the energy. I'm gonna stand up for myself. I'm gonna let my boundaries known, and you're gonna know when you cross that boundary. I'm kind. I'm no longer nice. It don't always mean I'm gonna open my mouth and say something. Because quite frankly, not everybody even deserves that energy. Because once I open my mouth and say something, it's hard enough if I'm thinking the thoughts to that's something I'm still working on, being able to control my energy and stay in a place where I can clearly focus on pushing the needle forward and what's in front of me and not allowing that negativity to be a distraction. But if you overstep a boundary, I'm going to make it known one way or the other. Sometimes it's something that needs to be said. Sometimes it's not, but either way, you're going to know. You're going to know. And if I have to open my mouth, then that means I'm using two energies at once. I'm using my thought, and now I'm using another part of my brain for it to actually come out of my mouth. Now I got to use my vocal cords. So depending on what I feel that situation calls, it may just go straight to your subconscious mind and skip your ears. You're gonna know and you're gonna feel it. And I don't care if you get upset. In fact, sometimes I want you to get upset. Because to not get upset means for you to think that you can continue. It means you ain't got to hear me. You ain't got to respect that boundary. And ultimately, you know what? You don't. Because I will walk away from you quick, but you going to know why when I do. And those around, more importantly, are going to also feel and know that you are a whole lie when you start playing the victim. When you start acting like you don't know why I ain't fucking with you. Especially for women, Black people, and other marginalized communities. Niceness is often used as a survival mechanism. If you're nice enough, maybe you won't be seen as angry. If you're agreeable enough, maybe you won't be punished. If you're likable enough, maybe they'll just stay. I used to feel all of those things, consciously and subconsciously. Now, if you go, go. If you go, go. If you on board with the disrespecting the boundaries, if you don't respect the fact or understand or care that it's certain things that I don't have to deal with, then guess what? You ain't gotta stay. It's best that you don't. I don't want you around. Because all you go do is just cause problems later anyway. And my goal is peace, maintaining my peace. I don't care if you don't like me. What I know now is I can be me, flaws and all, and those who get it. Those who don't. Screw them anyway. They not the target. I'm not trying to convince nobody or nothing. Not trying to convince nobody or nothing. And you walking away or me not being fed by you or me not eating with you is not my punishment, it's my protection. I'm good. But niceness can be a cage because it requires you to prioritize others' comfort over your truth. That's what we ain't doing no more. Psychologist Dr. Harriet Lenner, author of The Dance of Anger, writes, people who are taught to value harmony over honesty often bury their anger in needs Often bury that anger and needs in order to keep the peace. And that is so true. That is so true. She is so right about that because that's exactly what I used to do. But then you know what'll happen? I'll hold it in, hold it in, hold it in. I'll bury it, and then eventually I'll explode, and it'll be the smallest thing, and I'm going off. And then people around are like, "What done happened?" And you know what? I used to write it off as being an Aries because that's what I always hear. Oh, Aries just do that. Aries just do that. Aries explode. It's the god of war. All of that stuff. Like they nice, but don't mess with them. You know what I'm saying? Don't challenge them. They'll butt heads with you. They'll be nice to a point, but then they go off. Don't let that fire start in them. That type of thing. But I realize it ain't got nothing to do with zodiac. It has very little to do with zodiac, and it has everything to do with survival mode. I just needed to heal that part of me and transform. I needed to come to some realizations and be confident in my truth. That part. Be confident in it. Not question it, not doubt it. Because it'll be other people that'll try to cause you to doubt it, but it's just because either they don't understand it or they want to still be able to control you. They was comfortable with your niceness. They liked it when you was nice because they can get over on you. They knew they can do whatever they wanted to do, and they won't nothing you was gonna do or say. You would just go accept it, smile, nod, and agree. So they wanted that. They wanted to keep you in that, but that is not healthy for you. It ain't good. It ain't good. I knew that was me. I learned that that was me acting out of trauma, out of an unhealed nervous system, and that I don't need to do that. It doesn't make me a bad person. There's nothing wrong with me for standing up for myself. There's nothing wrong with me for not allowing a person to walk all over me or to violate boundaries or to treat me any kind of way. There's nothing wrong with me doing that. All I'm doing is standing up for myself, and I have every right to do that. To self advocate is my right and my responsibility. All right, burying yourself in order to keep the peace. This leads to internal resentment, exhaustion, and disconnection from self. Exactly. Exactly. And okay, so then the resentment part, let's talk about that. Resentment and exhaustion. And it is exhaustive. It is exhaustive. It actually makes you not want to deal with people. And that's one thing I noticed too about the transformation. I can deal in groups longer now before I get emotionally, energetically tired, worn down. I used to think that I was just introverted, but it was a whole trauma response. It was a whole trauma response. Now it's got me questioning what is this whole introvert extrovert thing? Like, what is it really on a deeper level? But that's a different talk for a different day. But I'm less exhausted in social situations now because I'm not holding those things in. Even if I don't verbally say it out loud, I'm expressing myself. Again, you're gonna know one way or the other. You're gonna know one way or the other. And I'm less exhausted. I don't um ruminate on things as long, which takes away from the exhaustion. I don't have resentment because I didn't express myself the way I wanted to or felt I need to, like I used to. And then one of the things also, that was the original thought. Apologize to yourself. Forgive yourself, right? Like you didn't know. That's what I had to learn. I didn't know. I was doing the best that I could. I showed up for myself. Like that was the survival mode. Thank you. Don't punish your mind or your brain for doing what it do to protect you. Just now that you're aware, say thank you. I no longer need that, and then start to transform. My therapist still remind me, just apologize. Just Say thank you. You're no longer needed. Thank you. You're no longer needed. So it's giving yourself grace. It's honoring that part of you that was needed for your survival mode. Your brain is healthy. You're working. It's working just how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to protect you in those situations. But now you don't need it anymore. You can release it. You can say, okay, now you can relax. You can relax. You know, I'll call you back up when I need you again. If I come into some new situation where I need you, now we know how to handle this thing. We're good. We're good. I don't need it anymore. I know what this particular thing is. I know how to use it. I mean, I know how to get around it or what to do with it, how to handle it. You can tell that survival part of your brain, I no longer need it. So then you're not resenting yourself. You're not angry at yourself. And sometimes that's a lot of what it is. You're angry at yourself because you didn't show up how you needed to show up for yourself. And then that anger becomes misplaced, especially with people who see somebody else that's healing or that has healed, and then they get angry at them or start acting like they did something wrong. That's misplaced anger. Really, you're not angry at me. Really, is not me that you despise or you hate. Really, is that part of yourself? Is that reflect? Is whatever you seeing in me is bringing up about you, your own internal conflicts. That's where your resentment really lies. And that's what you need to go and sit and think about and figure out for yourself. So just go sit down, think about that, forgive yourself, and figure out how to transform and move on. Get the book, Becoming the Light, The Dance of Shadow and Self. It'll help you. And for many, especially black women who are culturally typecast as aggressive, uh, being nice becomes an exhausting performance just to stay safe in rooms that are waiting to misread them. And that's another thing. I can hear somebody saying, see, what you want me to do, you playing in my face. You're playing in my face because what you want me to do is you want me to go off, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Or a situation like, look, don't do that, baby. I'm on this new walk, but I'm still healing, okay? God is still working on me, so you don't want to go there. That type of thing. Hold on, Nala. Let me finish. Hold on, I'm on the recording, okay? Bye. I'll open the door when I'm ready, okay? Get off the door. If the door not open, get off the door. I'm recording. Thank you. Hey. That I'm always recording. Well, somebody won't get. You want to get? You want to get in trouble? Don't do that again. No, I wasn't talking to him. I was talking to Nala. In a minute. Okay. All right. So now I'm gonna hurry up because I want to finish this. Almost to the end of the chapter. And grandbaby's like, "Can you play with us?" I ain't almost to the end of the chapter. Ooh, honey, 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 this junk goes on. Well, I'm gonna keep going. Damn. Okay. Ooh, honey, honey, honey. What was we at? Everyone's waiting to misread them. Okay, yes, yes, yes. Now, respectability politics. It is, all right, I keep track of the time too. Respectability politics. Respectability politics, the belief that if marginalized people just behave properly, they'll be treated better, is deeply has deep roots in American history. During Reconstruction, Black leaders were discouraged to, I'm sorry, Black leaders were encouraged to adopt white societal norms to prove their worthiness of freedom and citizenship. Later, in the Jim Crow era, Black communities emphasized excellence, church going, dress codes, and formality as shields against racist violence. But the unspoken rules were clear. You can be accepted as long as you are exceptional and not threatening. And to be honest, they still got hit with water hose and got the dogs let off. They was dressed all nice and sharp and all of that stuff. Again, not to downplay any of it or to talk bad on it, because my head goes off to them. I completely respect the sacrifice. It did something. It definitely did something to show the nature of the beast, to show the nature of the insanity and the mental conditioning and how bad these people were behaving. It showed the mentality of the authority, the rulership. It showed it beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it showed it not just to us because we already knew, our people already knew, but it showed to them. And it also showed to us that it don't matter. All the stereotypes and stuff that didn't even make a difference anyway, that was ridiculous to bring up. But even if you buy into the lie that, oh, they're less than human or something's wrong with a person's mind because they dress a certain way or because they talk a certain way or walk a certain way, well, here's the people that's fitting into all of your standards, that has completely assimilated to all of your things, okay? Even getting the perms and carrying the Bible and being completely peaceful and not even fighting back. And this is what still happened. These are the things that they still got attacked. So it showed it ripped the mask off. So I'm grateful for that sacrifice. I honor that sacrifice. But the truth is, it didn't even matter. The unspoken rule, with the unspoken rule was even a lie. You can be accepted as long as you're exceptional and non-threatening. You can be accepted, but only to a certain degree. You can be accepted to the point where we can use you. Not you can be accepted. You are usable. You are usable as long as you are exceptional and non-threatening. Then we can use you. But you're still not accepted or treated like human. You're still tortured and disrespected. We can just use you. Even today, if you fit in those roles, if you push forward the lie about Black identity, about migrant identity, yeah, we'll smile in your face. We'll act like we accept you. But really, we just realize we can use you. And that bargain is still playing out today. Respectability asks us to perform in whiteness coded spaces, to tone down our natural expressions, and to earn rights that should be inherent. But this obedience is not rewarded with justice, it's rewarded with conditional access. And the second you step outside of respectability, the systems remind you that your place is not secure. In her book, Sister Citizen, political scientist, political scientist Dr. Melissa Harris Perry explains how stereotypes like the strong Black woman or the angry Black woman shape both media and personal identity. These tropes force Black women to overfunction, suppress emotions, and to work twice as hard just to be seen as competent, as halfway competent. The pressure to be respectable becomes a trauma response because deviation feels like danger. Obedience and nervous system. Neuroscience helps explain why we often confuse obedience with virtue. When a child grows up in a home where expressing needs or defiance is met with punishment, their nervous system adapts for survival. The dorsal vagal shutdown response, part of the parasympathetic nervous system, causes the child to freeze, comply, or shut down emotionally, not because they're peaceful, but because they're afraid. Over time, this compliance becomes a baseline identity. These children grow into adults who apologize for existing, who say yes when they want to scream no, and who stay in jobs or relationships where they are disrespected because their body has been trained to equate safety with silence. Dr. Bressel Vanderkolk in The Body Keeps the Score writes, when you're being abused, you go into survival mode. But when the abuse is over, your body still acts like it's happening. This is why some people call themselves peacemakers when they're really just afraid of being abandoned. Or why some workers are praised for being so easy to manage when they're actually disassociated. Obedience is not always a sign of discipline. Sometimes it's a scar. Something to think about. Risk of being real. The opposite of good isn't bad, it's authentic. And authenticity is risky in systems that are built on performance. If you speak up, you may be labeled difficult. If you ask questions, you may be seen as rebellious. If you set boundaries, you may be shamed as selfish. But your authenticity is not the problem. The system's inability to hold it is. This is why we need new systems that holds our authenticity. Okay. This is especially true in white dominant institutions. Black employees who speaks in AAVE may be told they're unprofessional. Queer and trans folk who express themselves authentically are often accused of being inappropriate or too political. And you know what? That's two-sided too. That's two-sided too. Because sometimes queer and trans folk, it's a whole trauma response. It's a whole reaction. It's not just speaking authentically or expressing themselves authentically sometimes. Sometimes it's going overboard to push those standards. It's a whole pushback to what I'm saying right here. When people try to put them in a box or say that they're being inappropriate or that they're being too political or that they're being too much, they're like, well, you know what? I'm going to go overboard. I'm going to be a whole lot. Now I'm gonna talk about all it. You scared of the idea of me sleeping with somebody of the same sex? Let me tell you all about it. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they're going overboard as a trauma response or as a pushback to the system. Neurodivergent students who resist rote memorization are labeled disruptive. Each one is punished not for doing harm, but for not conforming. It was something as simple as, and that one too long ago, is being left-handed, being forced to write with your right hand. You know what? Let's skip forward. Let's skip forward. So next we go into N of one, self-studies, thinking about who taught you goodness, some questions and things to ask yourself, some meditations. Then we go into the trap of stereotype internalizations. Then we go from projection to possession. Psychological cost, what it does to you psychologically. The mirror is rigged. Stereotype versus selfhood. Carrying it in your hips. That's a story that I talked about on live before. When it gets into the body keeps the score. And then we talk about dance as a healing tool. Then we get into some N of one clarity practice. Some things like slow down, observe, some nervous system healing, which is sometimes what you have to do before you can start to do the deeper work. To study yourself is some questions to ask for deeper thought, for self-study. N of one is study. It's scientifically going through yourself, studying yourself. So some deeper questions to ask and to think about and to write, and it's good to go over these. And then we get into rewriting the norm. So we're talking about like what N of one is and asking these questions, what it asks of yourself, how to examine your body, how your body responds in certain situations, examining your health, examining your mental state, your emotions, and then it gets into rewriting the norms. So then I give some simple steps, right? Like list 5 things you were taught were normal growing up. Just for deeper reflection and examination. The guided path as you do the work. And then it goes into the adjustment, taking small steps, how you can take small steps towards healing. And it goes into those small steps. Listening to your inner voice, naming that belief system, naming that thing. Tracing the origins. I give some examples from my life, from childhood and even from adulthood. After I wrote the book, it was a section in here I went back and wrote because I had an experience where I came to a realization. So while I was editing the book, I added this in about walking, like how you walk tight and tense and stuff like that, how I was walking tense and the realizations I came to. And then the practice of rewriting, like literally actually rewriting the script. Oh, well, I guess I ain't gonna skip ahead. I just went through what it was about, and that's the end of the chapter right there. So one of the things is tracing the origins. It's important to trace the origins, where it came from. And cutting those ties. It helps you to break that off. So you can fine tune yourself and transform. Taking the old belief and then rewriting the script, writing new beliefs, rewriting that thought. My therapist call it fact checking or thought checking. Is this true? Where did this come from? And then you rewrite it. You create a new thing. Um, I wrote it as I see it as the old belief and the new belief. Simple, right? Nothing real catchy about it or anything. Just the old belief and a new belief. What's the old belief? And then rewrite that thing. What's the new belief about yourself? And even when I'm writing in my diary, I find myself doing that. I may say, well, I had to do this, or now I have to do this. And then I have to rewrite it because I don't want to be telling myself that it's forced, right? It's I get to do this. Instead of I have to drink water, for instance. I have to drink more water now. It's I get to hydrate myself. I get to set a new routine for staying hydrated. You know what I'm saying? Just rewriting that. It shifts a whole lot in the brain. Rewording that. You're rewriting the script. You paying attention to what you telling your subconscious mind. Because everything you say, you hear it. You hear it first. It starts as thought before it come out of your mouth. So you hearing it twice. So it's getting imprinted into your subconscious brain. So you got to be careful what you say out loud and silently to yourself and your thoughts. Like you have to be careful what you say. So rewrite it and rewrite it with intentions and clarity. We speak in healing and we speak in life into ourselves. The coming to light, the dance of shadow and self. The link is below to purchase. Support this fundraiser. Steadily working, doing the things to open the spot. So if this benefits you, if you see any value in it, get the book. Get the book. And then share it. Leave a review. Leave a review on Amazon. Come back here. Let me know how it helped you. If this message hit you in any kind of way, let me know what part stood out the most to you. What part resonated with you? What was your aha moments? And how you gonna apply any part of this talk into your life? What part are you gonna share with a friend? Because when something is so exciting to you, when something hits you in a way, when that thing is good, you gotta share it with somebody. So what part of this are you gonna share with a friend? Let me know. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next video.